So as we said, about grinding schedules, like I've got my grinding schedule and I don't stick rigidly to it because sometimes I'm just too tired. Okay, tiredness is the driving force that ultimately stops me from playing poker. If I'm just sitting on the sofa and I'm meant to start, I'm just like, I'll just take an extra half an hour. I'm just not up to it yet, right? And I think actually that's for the best. I do. I think not sticking rigidly to a schedule, and like Tom says, is just picking and choosing when you're feeling your best is better. So you should have a schedule. I do think everybody should have a schedule, and I break the day up into 3-hour slots. 3 of those slots have gone towards sleep. Now I never sleep. I mean, as I told you, Tom, I slept 9 hours last night, which is a real weird anomaly for me. My normal sleep is, believe it or not, 6 hours and 51 minutes. Couldn't write it.
Okay.
Could not write it. Nice. For life. So normally I sleep 6 hours 51. There was obviously variations in that. Sometimes before football, as you mentioned earlier, I've had 4 hours of sleep and then played shite.
Yeah, and then also feel really bad about playing shite as well because
just every part of my game, like my decision making is off. I'm hesitant. I feel like I can't control the ball. I'm not aggressive. Like there's 2 games this season where I slept for 4 hours and I was really, really bad.
Yeah,
objectively terrible. But yeah, it's the case that I think you should schedule your grinds in, but like Tom says, push a little bit less hard. Even if you stick to the time schedule, but play fewer tables on the day that you know that you're tired, that your readiness isn't there. So I've got 2, based on what Tom said today, I've got 2 what I would describe as coaching points for everybody listening. The first one would be to go in and actually do a little bit of self-study on this. I personally find the whole sleep thing fascinating. Some people might find it really intensely boring. I think most players, to be honest, would be quite interested in it. I would say watch a few of the videos on YouTube by Matthew Walker would be the best thing. He's got loads of lectures that are just for free.
Good lecture about Andrew Huberman that I think I might have mentioned in a previous video session, but it's like 2 hours, talks a lot about sleep, they talk a lot about the studies and how some things help and some things don't help.
He's got a video on everything, Huberman, doesn't he? He's a real go-to guy. Yeah, so Huberman, I would personally pick without Joe Rogan, but so Andrew, Dr. Andrew Huberman, Dr. Matthew Walker, those 2, I would study a few videos on those, and I would really follow the sleep hygiene stuff that they say. So generally, black out your room as much as possible, or familiarize yourself with sleeping masks. And they're a funny one. Sleeping masks are a funny one, especially if you hate being warm like me. I always discarded them and just assumed that I could never sleep with one. I found one that was kind of comfortable, and for a few months, I forced myself to wear it every single night. And lo and behold, I got very used to it. For reasons I can't remember, I gave up on that. But I'm going to start that again. Even still, I have like blackout blinds everywhere in my room. There's little cracks of light here and there, but I make my room as dark as possible. And for me, being cold, now, I believe our temperature dips through the night to allow us to sleep. That's like a physiological thing. Your body temperature does dip to allow you to drift off to sleep. So it's natural for everyone. For me personally, I like to be freezing. If you have a night schedule like Tom and I do, the likelihood is that you're all out of whack because your body is dipping in temperature at the time it thinks it should go to sleep. This is all to do with melatonin production in the sun. Sun goes down, body starts to adapt. We play poker through the night. Sun starts to come up, and that's when we go to bed. So for poker players, to be honest, we're going against our natural biology. I wouldn't recommend anyone take melatonin, but you can certainly speak to your doctor about it. I would recommend people probably get a vitamin D supplement because it's hard to overdose on, and it's really fucking good for you. And a lot of poker players will be deficient in it.
Yeah.
But really try and invest money in it as well. It's another thing. Poker players are often very thrifty. Invest a lot of money in your sleep. I have like a Temper mattress, which is like, it cost me a lot. I got it on finance over like 5 years or something. Really splash out on your bed. Really splash out on like blackout blinds, face mask, all that shit. Get an air conditioning machine if you need it, which I have. Really up your sleep hygiene and invest in it, because the amount of money that you invest in your sleep will be paid back in very short periods of time, I would say, with grinding, Tom.
Yes, I would agree entirely, absolutely, and I also concur with everything that Webb suggested.
So the second thing, just quick, the second thing I was going to suggest is really listen to your body when it comes to grinding. Like Tom said, I think Tom gave the best advice when he says, I'm tired and I'm not going to play very much today. Don't be afraid to drop your table count. Don't be afraid to drop stakes if need be, and don't be afraid to take hours off if you really feel like you're not up for it. So sometimes if we can see,
you know what I mean? Like it's I think one of the things that I was told, and again, I'm not 100% sure of the legitimacy of this, but I was told that the score you'll get from an independent tracker will be more reliable than your own personal kind of anecdotal data. So sometimes you'll wake up and you go, oh, I feel exhausted. Then and you look at your readiness score and it says, hey, you're 85 out of 100. You're really ready for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And other times you might wake up and feel great, but actually your readiness score is 71 or something, and you've actually slept really badly. You just woke up at the right time and you feel pretty good, and then whatever. And so I think I was told is actually rely more on your kind of like objective numbers, rather than because our feelings can be very, very easily swayed. I think quite comfortable with all kinds of stuff. You know, I mean, the sun's shining, we had a bit of good news, and whatever, things went well yesterday, and we'll be whistling away and whatever. But actually, maybe our underlying physiological needs have not really been met, and therefore will actually be less less set up for success.
I tell you, when you really feel that times when you go on holiday, when you go on vacation, and you wake up after 6 hours sleep, and you're all excited, and the sun's shining outside, and you're in a good mood, and so you kind of pop up out of bed, and then you have a little crash later on. Like a little siesta. That I presume, I don't know for sure, but I presume the reason is we sleep in cycles of 90 minutes, right? We usually get 5 to 6 cycles of 90 minutes per night, and the closer to light sleep that you wake up in, and the further from deep sleep, the more alert you feel, particularly in the early part of the day. Which is why a lot of these smart alarm clocks, which is what I was talking about before, it's Sleep Cycle, the app, will wake you up over the course of half an hour, and it can tell. I don't know what measurement it uses to be able to tell us. I think it's the movement.
So because you're actually fairly paralyzed when you're in deep sleep. Like
that's right. Yeah.
You just don't move at all.
I think that's how it wakes you when you start to wriggle about a little bit, which signifies that you're in a lighter sleep, is when the alarm clock goes off. Is that right? Yeah. So I presume that's what causes that effect, is when you wake up in a light sleep, even if you haven't had enough, you might feel more ready for the day. Whereas if you've had, say, 9 hours of sleep and you get woken up by an alarm clock, but you were in a deep sleep, you're going to feel more groggy, at least to begin with. But then later in the day, you're going to feel much better. I'm guessing here, but yes. So you would recommend everyone get an Oura ring, I presume?
I would recommend everyone get something. I think in terms of the outlay versus the feedback you can get, and especially given what we see here, if I could tell people that there was a device that could essentially double your win rate at times, you'd be like, well, I'd spend $5,000 on that, no problem. You know what I mean? Like the cost to efficiency that I have experienced on my limited data sample suggests that any amount of money, it's worth it. And actually, to be honest, there's lots of options, right? You can even just have something on your phone and get an app or whatever. You can go for a Fitbit, you can go for an Apple Watch or whatever. There's lots of things out on the market, and secondhand stuff's available. And so, but I had always been a bit skeptical about this sort of stuff. If you like, this thing that I made was originally in March 2021. I never had a sleep tracker. I was a bit skeptical about it. I was like, it doesn't really know what's going on. I know better. And actually, the Oura Ring, and especially doing this, I'm like, this feels like quite legitimate in terms of suggesting.
I think,
stuff is legit.
I think the experts kind of say, or at least this is what I've garnered, is like sleep study and like doing a test of someone's sleep is extraordinarily difficult, and that the data that you get from these apps is somewhat superficial and not particularly great at a granular level, but gives you a good overall look at your sleep. And I think that's more than enough. So even Sleep Cycle, which you don't need a watch for, I used to use Sleep Cycle for years before any of this became a thing. And you just put the phone on the bed next to you. You no longer have to put it on the bed, apparently, but you used to put the phone on the bed and just don't put it under your pillow.
Track your movement or whatever.
And that, I used to find that I thought that was reasonably accurate. I would see, like, I've had it would give me a rating out of 100. Very simple, just a rating out of 100. And I really felt like that did correlate with the way that I felt those days. So even if you're watching this and you don't want to invest in this, then just get the free app Sleep Cycle. But I would recommend, honestly, for professional poker players, we've always said this, treat it like you're a professional athlete. To be honest. And really be prepared to invest. Everything that you invest in poker typically is going to pay back.
Agreed.
In terms of your health, like exercise, sleep, and all these types of things. I was my physio, Tom, my physiotherapist, who's been helping me with my gammy hips. was a therapist at Hull City before,
Yeah.
football club. So he was working with professional footballers. He said that generally they spend about 30 grand on a mattress.
Yeah, well.
And he's just like, his thing was that they train crazy, but they sleep like lions. That was his phrase. They sleep like lions. And he said that that's like the cornerstone of everything that they do was that they made sure they got absolutely the best sleep possible.
Yeah.
If you notice that the Euros and the World Cups, what they used to do is they used to let players like go and sleep with their families and stuff in the hotels.
Yeah.
Whereas now they really they keep the players on their own and they make sure that the room is absolutely tailored to precisely what the player needs.
Yeah.
So it was kind of before it was like, oh, they'll figure out how to get sleep. It's not a big deal. And now they're like, no, we need to make sure this player gets the right amount of sleep that they need specifically.
There's a data, and this is a little bit from, I'll try and find the study, but there was a study that was done on American footballers, and they tracked the amount of sleep that various athletes got, and they looked at, there was a subset of athletes, American football players, that were sleeping more than 10 hours a night, and they correspondingly had the highest successful sprints by a huge margin or something.
Right.
And again, given what we know how sleep can aid us, I think if it's not a priority, it should be a priority, and it can be fantastic boost to your game. I really want to, because I know we're running out of time. So like caffeine, we know it's bad, but there's a bit of bad stuff. Caffeine, I think it's interesting because this is obviously 2 years old, this data, but stuff's slightly adjusted where like people's caffeine has an impact where it depends how much you've drunk. Lifetime, I've consumed quite a bit of caffeine, Wubs.
I think you're right.
And it actually has much less of an impact. The efficacy of caffeine is pretty minimal to me, in that I actually did drink 3 Diet Cokes before I went to bed last night and slept really well. So I think caffeine is something to avoid, especially if you're more caffeine sensitive. But it's also something that I would try not and overly worry if you've accidentally drunk a Diet Coke. I mean, don't have try not to have a massive coffee at 11 p.m. and expect to sleep at 1 p.m.